Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
It's an honor to welcome you today to the Ford Point plant in Richmond, California. This facility, along with the city of Richmond, played a significant role in California's history. The Ford Model A was manufactured here in the 1930s, and the Willys Jeep and the Sherman tank followed during the wartime manufacturing efforts of World War II. Even more important than the vehicles produced out of this factory were the people who worked here. The iconic Rosie the Riveters, who embodied hard work, resilience, and the we can do it attitude that empowered generations of women and men in the decades that followed, worked in this very same factory and others like it across the country. We honor their accomplishments and take pride in upholding their legacy of innovation, grit, and determination as we work to build a sustainable future for the generations that follow us. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you joining us here on Earth Day for this important event celebrating California's clean energy future. A warm and windy welcome. My name is Paul Hillskamp, and I'm the CEO of Moxion Power, a California-based manufacturer of battery energy storage technology. I'm proud to be joined by other leading clean energy pioneers, PG&E, Sunrun, and the California ISO, whose dedication to environmental stewardship has inspired me during my 15-plus year career in renewable energy, as I'm sure many of you in the audience as well. Moxion's mission of disrupting our dependence on the fossil fuel economy aligns with California's commitment to building an enduring clean energy economy. And we are proud to be powering this event and playing our part in the fight against climate change. I want to thank our featured speakers, Patti Poppe from PG&E, Mary Powell from Sunrun, and Joanne Serena from the ISO for joining us today. Their discussions will explore technology's impact on environmental sustainability while highlighting California's clean energy policies and its ambitious 2045 carbon neutrality goal, which focuses on how we can limit, adapt to, and reverse climate change. Our hope is that you leave here today feeling excited and empowered to champion renewable energy initiatives, advocate for policies that promote clean energy, and commit to individual actions for reducing our collective carbon footprint. Now, let's turn the stage over to Sonal Larsen, Moxion's Director of Public Policy, who will be moderating today's conversations. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to an incredibly windy morning here, as you can see. So bear with me here with that. But to quickly introduce myself, I'm the Director of Public Policy here at Moxion Power. And building on what Paul said, it's an honor to be here where history meets innovation, especially in a setting that celebrates U.S. manufacturing and the remarkable contributions of women leaders. Today, we're joined by distinguished leaders who are spearheading innovations within the clean energy sector. Patti Poppe, Chief Executive Officer of Pacific Gas and Electric, who manages California's largest utility. Mary Powell, Chief Executive Officer of Sunrun, at the helm of the largest dedicated residential solar company in the U.S. And Joanne Serena, Vice President of Stakeholder Engagement at the California Independent System Operator, or CAISO, who oversees California's wholesale electricity market and ensures the reliability of the state's transmission grid. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today. And just to remind the audience, we will take questions. We will save time at the end for questions, and followed by a demonstration of Moxion's zero-emission mobile battery energy storage system that Paul just described. So let's dive into our discussion here on California's ambitious goal to achieve economy-wide carbon neutrality by 2045 amid the challenges posed by climate change. So just to open up on this theme of leadership, Patti, as the head of California's largest utility, how is PG&E contributing to the state's 2045 economy-wide carbon neutrality goal?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. Thanks, Sonal, for the question. And happy Earth Day, everybody. It's a glorious day to be out at such a beautiful place. And thank you, Moxion, for hosting us. I'm excited about the technology. The plant tour was very fun. So PG&E has an incredibly important role to play in California's ambitious goals, and I'm actually here to break a little news. We decided we should hold it here for Earth Day, and so on today, I'm very proud to announce on behalf of PG&E that in 2023, we delivered for the first time ever 100% greenhouse gas free energy for our retail customers. And that is not without a lot of innovation and partnerships, but we used wind, solar, small and large hydro, and the backbone of our GHG free system is in fact our Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant. So very pleased to announce that today. In addition to that, we have made significant progress on our use of battery storage. We have 2,100 megawatts of battery storage on our system and have a target to add an additional 1,600 megawatts of battery storage by 2026. That is right around the corner. So it's going to take partnerships with people like Moxion, like Sunrun, working with the CAISO to feather in that battery storage. But we are very bullish on clean energy for California, and we're proud to be the utility who can deliver that to our customers so successfully.
That's amazing, remarkable. Thank you for sharing that news here today on Earth Day. It's a great start to the day. Looking forward to kind of hearing more about how we're all contributing to making this happen. So focusing now on residential solutions, Mary, I wanted to ask, what technologies and partnerships, I'm so sorry about the wind here, what technologies and partnerships do you see kind of supporting Sunrun's continued commitment to sustainability and continuing to be a leader in this space?
Yeah, so awesome to be here. And again, yes, happy Earth Day. Great news, Patty. I love to hear that. It's just amazing. You know, I'm so excited to say that, again, we have 1.7 million customers in California, not of Sunrun, 1.7 million customers of solar that are producing amazing results as well for the planet. Just Sunrun alone, just our customers alone, which is about half of our 900,000 customers are in California. And through their work to achieve some energy independence, more stability with the technologies that they have in their home, they have contributed to greenhouse gas emissions as well. They have done the equivalent of taking 2 coal plants offline, which is really significant. And they also have contributed in a way that is the equivalent of 1.6 million cars coming off the road. So it's just so powerful. And when I reflect back, like I don't know about all of you, but I remember my first Earth Day. I was actually in a park in New York City where I grew up, picking up trash, as any 10-year-old should be doing on Earth Day, in my opinion. And I just remember at the time, like, just having such big, bold dreams for what could happen. And I feel like, you know, here we are so many years later, and some things are happening, but back to the technology question, you know, it's actually stunning to me that we still are sitting at the point where we have such massive opportunity. So stated differently, I would have hoped from the time I was 10 until now that we would have made a lot more progress. And I really then also became so convinced that the progress that was going to happen was going to be because consumers decided, that human beings decided that they wanted a different future. And what we do is we accelerate what I view as the consumer-led revolution to technologies that can improve homes, can improve lives, can provide clean energy. We're also not just the largest in providing solar to customers. We're the largest in providing solar plus storage. And we're now at about a 45% of our customers are going with solar and storage. And as Patty knows, and as we know from the grid perspective, what's so powerful about that is that makes those resources even more powerful for Patty, for CAISO, right? And that's the work I got to do as a utility leader, was creating a virtual power plant way back in 2015 to prove that we could use these amazing technologies like what Moxion is doing, right? What you're doing is so important and so powerful because the technologies exist. They're here today. They've been here for years. Storage has been commercially available for years and years. And we're now at the precipice of saying, how do we collaborate together and get to a whole nother level of achievement and success for the customers we serve and for California in meeting their goals. Because as we all know, to meet the goals California has, we need everything.
do all of it,
We need
yeah.
all. We
Yes.
need, actually, I said on Twitter, it's an all of the above strategy, and somebody reminded me that some could interpret that to mean including natural gas. No, I'm not including natural gas. When I say all of the above, it's all of the above renewable strategies, all of the above technologies that can transform the grid, not just, because we don't care just about the customers we serve. We care about the grid. We care deeply about the grid being affordable for all. So again, it's wonderful to be here on Earth Day, and let's make let's commit to making the progress together to actually take what that 10-year-old saw as possible and make it happen now.
No,
Let's
these
do it.
announcements on solar and storage in particular, we at Moxion love to hear kind of the 40% of customers
Yes.
and the milestones that PG&E has announced now on storage. It's remarkable to see kind of how these collaborations
It really is, and what's
are coming
so
together.
cool
Yeah.
about it, as we all know, is that it provides a more resilient home as well. Like for those customers that have storage, it's not just that they get to then contribute to the grid when Patty and Kaiso need it the most, right? It's that they also like have that safety and security in their own home. And they don't need to worry about if we have to shut power down for safety reasons, right? They can
Absolutely.
power through.
Yeah, and you know, on that note, I'd love to explore kind of Joanna on keeping the power on that theme, to talk about some of the strategies, you know, to integrate broader grid management. How are these technologies coming online? How are you looking at these innovations to meet California's climate goals? What are some of the main obstacles and challenges in bringing these kind of new innovations onto the grid and keeping it reliable?
Well, thanks, Anil, and good morning, everybody. And it's great to be here, especially on Green Day. So thank you, Earth Day. So to your point, Mary, the technologies is just really, really important, right? As we learn more about battery storage, what it means to the grid. We certainly have had challenges, but we are overcoming those challenges more and more, and learning more about how to effectively run the grid, especially during those tight summer conditions. But in a sense, we need more, right? In this case, less is not more. We need more. So the CEC estimates that we need about 165,000 more megawatts of new installed capacity on the grid. And to put that into perspective, we currently have 80,000 megawatts installed on the grid. So when you think about that, we have to more than double, right, what we currently have installed. So that's on top of our new installed capacity. So the pace that we're going right now, to just give you another perspective, is in the last 3 years, we've added 15,000 megawatts. Okay, so we have to outpace ourselves to be able to put 70,000 megawatts on the grid in the next 10 years. And then another 70,000 megawatts on top of that in the following 10 years. So we have a marathon in front of us, but every technology helps. And part of that equation is storage. We have about 10,000 megawatts of battery storage on the grid. And Patty and I were talking just before the event here that you want to share your story there?
Sure. So Joanne and I have a shared story here. On April 16th, just a couple days ago, there was a point in time during the day where the number one resource contributing to the grid was battery storage. 6,000 megawatts were online and serving the peak.
Yep.
It's very possible. Mary, just as you said, it's very possible on the grand scale like that. And we had room to spare. We
room
had
to spare.
10,000 megawatts. We were only using 6,000.
Exactly.
And so that was the number one resource that day.
Yeah. So in summary, we just need to keep bringing these resources online. You asked me what some of the challenges are, right? There's probably two main challenges that I wanted to mention. One is supply chain, right? And we were talking about this with Moxion early on in the COVID time. Supply chain was a big challenge, right? And we're starting to come out of that, but it is still a challenge. To bring the volume of resources online that we need to get online, that supply chain is so important, right? And being able to get the equipment to meet the schedules and get the local upgrades to the whole network system on time is going to be really, really important. The other thing that we're working on at the ISO is reforming our interconnection queue, right? So in order to get resources online quickly, we need to be able to identify where resources are needed and whether or not they can be delivered. So transmission is a big part of that equation. We want to be able to deliver all this great clean energy where it's needed. So that's one of the big challenges we're faced with today.
Absolutely. That's an incredibly important theme of trying to get this clean energy to where it's needed and the transmission lines. And I think your job is going to be pivotal to making that happen. And so, I mean, on that broader view of bringing more renewables onto the grid, back to you, Patty, I wanted to ask, looking forward, what does the future hold for renewables, both at the utility scale and distributed level?
Yeah, we are very bullish on additional renewable capacity for the system and for the state. And I think at both the distributed and the bulk scale level, I'll tell you, one of the projects that Sunrun and we did together was actually at a distributed level, adding storage, as Mary had talked about, to solar customers and making sure then we could leverage that as a virtual power plant. And so there's things like that at a very we had up to 32 megawatts on any given day of capacity that we could deliver from home batteries to serve the grid. And so one of the most important things, and you're going to hear it over and over again today, that the combination of distributed energy production, whether that's rooftop solar or other distributed sources, combined with storage is sort of the holy grail of being able to actually have the dispatchable energy that we need when we need it. And so we're pretty excited about that. And I think it does take all of us doing all of it. And so more and more partnerships where we're delivering bulk scale storage, like our Elkhorn storage facility, 182 megawatts on that very same site. There's a 600 megawatt storage facility combined with then residential storage. And so one of the things that's most important to us as the distributed and the distribution system operator is we've announced a partnership with Schneider Electric and Microsoft to have a distributed energy resource management system. So the actual hardware matters, but the software matters a lot. And being able to optimize those distributed resources, today I can't see them, and so being able to see the residential resource as a supply resource on a peak day will make us take better, it will enable us to take better advantage. So it's going to take all of us doing all of it, and I just think it's an exciting time to be in the clean energy business, and California, by all measures, is definitely leading the way.
Yeah, and on this theme of collaboration and working together and kind of the all-above approach, I wanted to ask Patty and Mary, both of you, I guess, I want to ask, considering collaborative efforts that are needed, could you both discuss the role that the private sector and communities can play in this transformation? Mary, maybe we can start with you.
Sure, yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous role that they can play, because as Patty described, it's really about envisioning a different future. Foundationally, we're talking about envisioning a future where community energy, where rooftop energy, where storage from all different points of light, as I look at it, it's moving from this one monolithic way of looking at energy and moving to like thousands of points of light that then get to be coordinated and contribute to the grid in a very different way. So it is incredibly powerful. It's not just, as Patty and I have also talked about, it's not just that Sunrun now is providing solar plus storage, right? There's a direct linkage between people who go solar and who buy an electric vehicle. So we also, in many cases, are providing EV charging. We're also, in many cases, providing a sophisticated home electrification panel so that all of that load and that generation can become smart, controllable load for the utility and for the grid. Like, that's when it starts to get incredibly powerful when we think of it from a different way. And back to Earth Day, one of the things that I love about that model is it also is, like, foundationally the most effective land use strategy you could ever embark on. You know, in fact, I remember saying when I was running a utility, I remember saying to the legislature, I drove by this exit with like all these big box stores, and I said, every single one of those stores should have solar panels on its roof, right? Every single one of those stores should have storage, because then that's that much less land that I have to build a utility solar plant. That's that much less land that I have to use for other resources that all again tie to the earth that we're all trying to protect. So the technologies are here. It's really about the collaboration, and that's why I was so excited about the work that we got to do together, Patty. And as Patty and I always say, and that's just the beginning. Like, we've got a lot more work to do, because really bringing it together to 1,000 points of light, to thinking of our energy system as completely different than our grandparents thought of it, right? It's a 100-plus-year-old model. I always say it's not the grid's fault. We built it that way, right? But now it's
like
time.
that.
It's not the grid's fault. We built it that way, but it's also time to re-envision it. It's time to, and that requires collaboration. Like, there's no other way to move from entrenched ways of doing things or systems of doing things than innovation, technologies, and collaboration, and consumers being at the forefront of it.
You know, and I think there's a lot of people who want to try and find a winner and a loser in this whole conversation, when in fact everyone wins when we work together. And that may sound Pollyannish, but let me give you an example of how that worked. In September of 22, we had a very significant peak event. And I remember being in the command center, watching the load for the state grow. We were on the CAISO website, of course, and we're watching the load creep up, and we were nervous. And California got nervous about would we have the ability to supply. And we saw some points of light that day that point to a very sustainable future. Battery storage worked like it was supposed to. We were able to tap the maximum battery storage as a resource. That was the first day that we did a virtual power plant with residential storage. We did 50 megawatts of a virtual power plant that day. That was small compared, we were short about 2,000 megawatts. 50 was just a start, but it was just a start, and it was a proof point that the future is possible with the right combination of resources and the right optimization capability, and we all get the opportunity to contribute to that. And so there aren't winners and losers. We can all win when we have an optimized system that serves everyone, and that can actually be an affordable future for all citizens of California as we decarbonize the economy. And so we're very excited about the future. In fact, we've got some statistics that show when we decarbonize the economy, if we reduced carbon emissions by 70%, particularly in fuel switching from gasoline vehicles to electric transportation, household energy spend can actually go down 30%. It won't be more expensive. It will be less expensive for households because they will be able to spend their hard-earned dollars on the most efficient fuel, which is electricity. And so when we have 100% clean energy delivering to a grid, powering electric vehicles, that's a decarbonized economy with a 30% lower household energy spend. I think that's a future we can all get excited about.
I agree, Patty. Yay. And that was a nail biter that day.
That was a nail biter.
It was a
We
nail
made it.
biter.
We made it.
Yes.
You know, Joanna, I guess if you want to close out on this theme of communities and seeing these virtual power plants and distributed resources coming online now, do you have a thought on how CAISO's kind of keep it up? And
Well, I think, like Patty says and Mary, it's going to take all of us, right, and all of you as well, working together with the state agencies, with all of the utilities, and consumers to play their part. And I think, you know, in order for us to be successful, we've got to work together to do it. And I think we can do it, right? We've seen in the last few years with the growth of resources coming online, learning from them and being able to support our customers. So we're on a path, and we just need to keep doing more of it.
yeah, this is fantastic. Well, before we open up the floor to questions, I wanted to ask, this is a question I actually have from my daughter's second grade class for all of you on Earth Day. It's a fun one here just to close out. But the solar eclipse, this one's kind of a funny one coming from second graders. Mary, I'll start with you because this one, they wanted to know what happens to solar panels during totality of a solar eclipse.
Yeah, so I got to chat about that quite a bit around the eclipse. Wasn't that cool? Oh my goodness. Anyway, it's, the solar panels generate on super cloudy days. So yeah, where the path of totality was, there were a couple of minutes where it's the equivalent of nighttime, but solar generation across the country did very, very well. Our customers did very, very well on that day, because for most customers, especially like in California where I was for the eclipse, it wasn't even noticeable from a solar generation perspective. So it was only in the path of totality where it had any impact at all. So you can tell those kids that we powered our customers through, and so many of them have storage now. So it doesn't even matter if it gets dark for a few minutes.
Everyone was outside at that moment anyway, right?
Yeah,
So-
there's no energy. That's right. It'd be interesting to actually look at the grid at that moment, what was going on with
yeah.
the power at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, we watched it happen, and you can actually see where the solar resources come off, and we fill the gap with storage and other resources, and it worked. And then when the solar came back on, you could see it ramp back in, and the resources that we had to fill the gap sort of came right off. So it worked as magic. It worked-
And Patty,
worked
where
as
were
supposed
you
to.
during the solar eclipse?
we
Did you get to see
prepare.
it? Yeah.
We prepare for days like that, and we were very happy to watch it work just like it's supposed to. So
Yeah,
that was
no,
good.
that's fantastic. I'll bring this back to the second graders. They're excited on Earth Day. They were excited to hear about this panel of women kind of leading the way for what they're learning about how California's grid's changing and how we're combating the effects of climate change. So it's great to have you all at the head of these organizations doing so much to bring this together, the collaborative efforts, helping companies like ours bring technologies like Moxion's onto the grid and making it easier for us to be able to do that. So we really appreciate that. We're going to have, when we open up, any closing remarks on this?
I couldn't help but think as you were talking, Sonal, that here we are at the site of Rosie the Riveter, that all of us having that can-do spirit. I'm inspired today by the idea that the can-do spirit is alive and well, and that women and men and all the people across California get to be part of a clean energy future, and I couldn't be more excited about that and more inspired here today at the hub of innovation that this site represents.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that a group of second graders were excited about the fact that I'd be talking to utility executives and folks bringing on solar panels on Earth Day, it goes to show you that I think the generations are changing, and leadership is, for generations to come, I think going to get more creative and more interesting, and more technologies like Moxion's. I think what we're going to see by the time they're grown is going to be really interesting.
I think we need a picture like this before we go today, the four of us. So we'll get that.
With the
We'll
wind,
give everyone
with
their
the wind
Photoshop.
in the right direction
Yeah,
for me,
yeah.
please. If you've all seen me kind of struggling up here, so apologies to all those trying to take pictures and videos here with that. But yeah, we'd love to open up the floor to questions here. I think there's going to be a couple folks running around with some mics. Paul, and yeah.
Check, check. Yep, it works. Anyone have any first questions? Leslie.
Hi, I'm Leslie Brinkley with ABC 7 News. Good to see you all here out today. We had a question about a bill that's up for the vote in the legislature today. PG&E has a plan to spend $6 million on commercials touting your work to curb wildfires, and that's using ratepayer money. The bill would ban utilities like PG&E from using taxpayer dollars to pay for commercials. Your thoughts on that bill and how you would manage that if it did pass?
Yeah, I have two thoughts on the bill. Number one, we are not allowed to use ratepayer money for brand advertising. That's true today. Now, one of the things that we have learned, particularly following all of the work that we've been doing around wildfire, is our customers do want to know, what are we doing to prevent catastrophic wildfire? We've heard that loud and clear from customers. And it is still true that on stations like ABC, commercials are watched and viewed, and so that is a mechanism we use for public safety messaging and for messaging about the public safety steps that we are taking to make our grid resilient to extreme weather conditions. And so any advertising that we do is reviewed and evaluated by the CPUC, and so that's actually true today. We have no concerns about the bill.
So if the bill passes and you're not allowed to use that $6 million fund to pay for advertising, you would find another way to fund it, or?
Yeah, we're not allowed to use it today unless it's a public safety message.
Okay.
Thanks, Leslie. Any other questions? Front.
Hello, Tony Hicks with Bay City News. Concerning the grid, you had discussed some of the challenges in the coming years and the capacity needs that you're going to need. Can you sort of address what that's about? Whether is it residential growth? Is it commercial growth? Where does that come from?
So the growth in terms of resources is going to be solar resources coming online, new generation, possibly resources across the West in a wider footprint as we build new transmission lines to bring in some of that extra generation that we may need in California across those big transmission lines. So it's really about leveraging a diverse set of resources across California and across the West to really bring in the amount of power that we need.
And would you say, Joanne, we also want to make sure that we optimize that power usage. And so for the first
Absolutely.
time ever, demand management is actually viable at scale, especially with electric vehicles. In fact, I'm often asked, is the grid ready for electric vehicles? And I say, not only is the grid ready, the grid needs electric vehicles. The electric vehicles can both supply the grid and use power from the grid when there's excess supply, for example, from solar and midday. That would be a very low-cost way to fuel those vehicles and then use them as a dispatchable resource on a peak summer day. And so we're doing a lot of work with technology companies, the automakers, the interface, to be able to create a huge virtual power plant from electric vehicles and things like the Moxion technology that can be mobile storage and used to help deliver energy, particularly on a peak summer day versus building excess supply just to serve that peak.
Yeah, those virtual power plants are going to be critical, right, in shaving off that demand during those peak periods, and it's going to significantly help in balancing supply and demand. So we need all of those types
We
of
need all of
resources.
it.
We need all of
Yes.
it, right?
Yeah, and the other cool thing to pile on to that is, again, I think right now we think of it honestly too often as like this resource that we can use this 1 minute of this one day or this 1 hour, instead of looking at it as foundationally, we're building distributed power plants. Like full stop, we're building distributed power plants. Sunrun alone is bringing online 1 gigawatt of solar energy capacity every year, and then now if we hit that 50% or even at 45%, that is a massive amount of stored energy capacity that is scaling rapidly. So it really is, in my mind, I know we've called it virtual power plant for a long time. I think I was part of that way back in 2015, but it's really a distributed, it's a way of thinking about the future foundationally in a very, very different way than the grid was built originally. And again, what's really powerful is with those EVs in homes, companies like Sunrun, all the other market participants can turn that into smart controllable load for the utilities, because a lot of people aren't going to want the complexity of thinking, oh, geez, do I have to run and backfeed now? They just want to live their lives and have all of that clean energy orchestrated for them in a way that improves their life and makes them feel more secure in their own home.
The other thing that we're seeing considerable growth of is with all of the solar plants within California, we're seeing the co-location of battery storage, right? And that is so critical, so that when we have that excess power in the middle of the day with all the great sunshine in California, we can charge up those batteries, like these Moxion batteries, right? And then we can use those when the sun goes down. So those solar plants co-located with battery is absolutely genius, and it's the technology that's really making a difference.
Yeah, that's, just one thing I want to ask and add on this. On Earth Day, we have, this being covered by the news of a panel of executives who are trying to move the grid forward in California. related to that, I guess the question: what would your message to consumers be today who want to buy solar panels, who want to get an EV, who want to kind of be part of these kind of distributed resources that you're talking about? How EVs can become distributed resources. What would you say to consumers today who are tuning in on Earth Day?
So from my perspective, and to build on something Patty said, it's ultimately about embracing a clean energy future that gives you more stability and more security and more comfort in your own home at a more effective cost. So to Patty's point, driving an EV is more cost effective, right? And combining solar plus storage plus your transportation can be, I of course, as you would guess, talk to our customers every week, and it's liberating. It's liberating. It gives them a feeling of energy independence and security and safety in their own home, and locks in price stability, which is very, very important to Americans right now, as we all know, as inflation has gone up. And so just being able to have that stability and locking that in is incredibly valuable. And the fact that then they can become a part of, like the program Patty and our teams worked on this summer, they can be part of a program where, whatever the incentive is, whether it's hundreds of dollars or tens of dollars, right? They are then getting to appreciate the value of participating in supporting the grid and their neighbors. So it's very, very powerful. But most customers do it because they just want more energy independence and a more safe and secure feeling in their own home.
Yeah, Patty, what would your message to your customers be today on Earth Day?
Yeah, I think especially adding storage at a residential level. I'll just tell you a little story of what happened at my own home. It was a regular Tuesday, and we have the house we purchased when we moved to California has a couple Tesla Powerwalls. And on this particular Tuesday, there was a grid event, and so our virtual power plant was called. And because we have the settings set that it's also available for the house, we also had a safety power outage because of wildfire. I live in an area that is prone to it's a high fire risk area. And so we had a safety outage and a grid event, and my house, it was invisible to my husband who works from home. He was not interrupted. His power was resilient. I call that perfect power. And I think these distributed resources as a part of an optimized grid is the most affordable way to deliver the premium experience that customers deserve. And our goal is to get that to everyone. Our goal is to make sure no one is left behind and that we have a grid that is resilient and can deliver for customers on any given day. And we can leverage these distributed resources to make that happen.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, I want to pass it back to the audience quickly if there's any additional questions. Yeah, love to.
Hi, Mark Chediak with Bloomberg News. Patty, you mentioned affordability. California now is the second highest electric rates in the country, and bills have been going up progressively past 10 years. And the state's policies are basically driving everyone to use more electrons to power their cars and their homes and buildings. So I'd like to get everybody's thoughts on how the state can manage the affordability issue here, given that rates are rising. They'll probably rise in the future. And I'd like to see how you guys think the average consumer can sort of afford this transition.
Yeah, Mark, it's a great question. It's certainly top of mind. We know with our most recent rate case and the catch-up of costs, particularly associated with wildfire mitigation and catch-up costs with our rate case, our customers are definitely feeling that, and we know that. I want everyone to know a couple things about what's happening in California. One, we are modernizing our methods of wildfire prevention. I am proud to say that we've reduced the wildfire risk by 94%. We are getting smarter about that. We're using technology more than ever before. And I don't want people to ever forget the risk that existed when we were not investing in the grid or not making it safe to these new standards and new extreme weather conditions. So given the extreme weather conditions, we have to modernize our methods and modernize our grid. That does take an investment, but we are also simultaneously rethinking some of the mandates and rethinking some of the rules that have existed in the past that are outdated. and that we have ways of saving customers money by moving to new and better and higher technology ways that are lower cost. And I do look forward to a day where we are announcing prices dropping, and I don't see that in the too distant future. Just as I described with a decarbonized future, household energy spend can go down, the unit cost of energy can go down with policy changes, modern technology, as well as we are implementing a lean operating system at PG&E that is rethinking how we do work. We're doing so much work smarter and for less dollars, and we're going to pass those savings on to customers. So I don't see a distinction between being able to serve customers affordably and being able to have the clean energy transition. We see those two things can go together, and we're very much committed to making that happen here in California.
What do you think can drive costs down?
Well, in some cases, these catch-up costs can come off. We've got one-time costs that are being recovered in bills right now that can come off the bill and will come off the bill year after year. We also can reduce spending on things like vegetation management. Vegetation management was our only tool in the early days of our wildfire prevention. We now see ways of reducing vegetation management, replacing it with technology like our enhanced power line safety settings. Though enhanced power line safety settings can cause outages for customers, that's why we know we need to underground the 8% of our lines, not the whole system, but 8% of our lines that are in the highest risk, most dense vegetation areas in the Sierras, for example, so we can more affordably deliver energy for customers with modern infrastructure that is built to withstand extreme climate conditions. And so those kinds of costs can come off, and we think the fixed charge is another way to help reduce the unit cost of energy. And so that's an important part of all of us sharing in the cost of the fixed cost of maintaining a climate resilient grid.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I'll just add to that in terms of being the market operator, right, one of the most important things from an economic perspective is that we dispatch the most economic resources as possible on the grid. And so we are continuing to refine our market rules and our market dispatch to really focus on cost containment.
Well, I think we nailed a little bit of how I view it. And again, as Patty knows, I was the CEO of a utility for 12 years, and the reason I created the first virtual power plant in 2015 was as a way to overall be on a path to reduce rates. I mean, we also culturally, we had a team that met every single week, and the job of that team was 0 rate increases. So we basically cut the company in half in terms of the size of the workforce. We did it drove up customer satisfaction to 94%. But from a power supply portfolio perspective, which is the massive part of what drove it in my utility experience, leveraging, leaning into the customer-led revolution and then figuring out how to leverage those assets to build fewer. We used solar plus storage as a non-transmission alternative, so we didn't have to build, for instance, $150 million, which in Vermont was a big transmission line. So really went hard on that, and that's why I am so passionate about the value of the work that we're doing, how that will add up to being really important grid resources for Patty, for Joanne, for, it's happening in Puerto Rico, it's happening in Hawaii, and many other places in the country.
I just had a real quick follow-up. You said PG&E has reduced wildfire danger by 94%?
94%.
Since which year?
Since we started working on it, so you could argue since 2017.
Okay.
And that's a calculable number. We filed that as part of our wildfire mitigation plan. That's not a marketing number. That's an actual risk reduction. And that remaining 6% of risk, we're continuing to innovate. I have a team today who's working on new technologies that we can add to the grid that are preventing failures, that are identifying hazard spots ahead of time remotely. We have a full-time 24/7, 365 hazard awareness center who's monitoring conditions all across the state. The state's invested then, as a complement to that 94% reduction, the state's invested in wildfire fighting resources. We have at PG&E 1,500 weather stations with associated cameras. About 600 of those AI-enabled cameras are often the identifier of the first sign of ignition and can automate a call to first responders. Just a few years ago, we had to wait for a citizen to notice smoke and make that call. Our California is dramatically safer than it has ever been before from a wildfire perspective, in no short order because of the work we've done at PG&E, but because of the work that every community has done and that the state has invested in.
How much of that is undergrounding? How much has been done since
Almost
2017?
none of that. We've buried 364 miles of line last year. We're up to about 600 miles, but that's a very small part of the savings. The biggest risk reducer is our enhanced power line safety settings that de-energize the lines within a tenth of a second if anything makes contact with them, and there's a high risk condition in that spot. We use an AI-enabled machine learning database and monitoring system to know exactly where the risk is occurring, and we can take proactive action. That was not true in 2017.
How much of a PG&E investment has been made since 2017? How much more money have you put into that than pre-2017?
You know, I don't have the total number, but we can get that for you. But on an annual basis, we're investing significantly. The top dollar investment right now, however, has been vegetation management, and that's where we think this is an opportunity to transition away from trying to find the right tree in the forest and instead use technology to prevent an ignition when anything makes contact with the line. And we think that's a more superior, and we've shown the risk reduction, 65% of the risk reduction is because of that technology. It's time to graduate from take every tree out and get to the point we are using technology to prevent ignitions of consequence.
Any other questions? Well, if not, I guess I'd ask one last question. And we said 2023, PG&E delivered 100% greenhouse gas-free electricity retail deliveries for our customers. What happens in 2024, Patty? What does next year look like for us and into the future as we get towards 2045?
Well, thank you, Paul, for that question, my PG&E colleague. We're obviously, a couple things are happening. There's going to be a change in some of the accounting next year. Our Diablo Canyon Power Plant is a big bulk of our carbon-free, our GHG-free energy delivery. And so next year, Diablo Canyon will be part of the state's allocation. And so we're going to share the greenhouse gas-free energy from Diablo Canyon with all customers across the state, not just with PG&E customers.
Great.
That's fantastic. And I think looking forward to 2024, any other things that you're excited about for the grid?
Well, I think it's going to take, like I said earlier, it's going to take all of us, and we're excited on this path forward. It takes reliability, cost, and certainly equity across the state to deliver what we need to. So very excited about all of it.
Yeah, and Mary, quickly, what you're excited about for 2024?
Let's scale. Let's go. Like, again, we need to move faster. We need to move faster. So what I get excited about in 2024 is anything that gets us moving faster.
Let's do more in 2024.
There you go. Let's do more in 2024.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for
Thank
being
you.